Okay, welcome today to Step 4 of the Created for Good Works process. We are here with our new career ministry volunteer, Ken McGill, who's going to be helping us in this training. And we are happy to have all of you joining either in real time or in a recording. So if you have not yet received a booklet, we do have these booklets available. I think they're a wonderful resource. You can also find some of the resources on crossroadscareer.org. So we are thankful for that organization that has put together a great program that we're going to be sharing with you today. Okay, so Ken, I will just go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay.
I'm here if you need anything.
Okay, everyone can hear me, right? So I think we're good in that regard. So
yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. So today is obviously Step 4, Altitude, targeting opportunities. And so in the first slide, or I guess it's probably slide number 3, Tracy. Do you move the slides, Tracy, or do I have?
You know what I'm probably going to need? I'm probably going to need like a hand signal because I literally cannot hear anything.
Okay.
So
okay.
Did you talk about the learning objectives of this week? You don't need to say that.
I have not. So let me just do that.
Okay. So I'll just go ahead and introduce. So we are talking about today the altitude. So being able to target employers who need most what you do best. So we're going to talk about how the right attitude and clarity of aptitude that you've already, we've gone through in steps 2 and 3 are going to help create altitude in career. Today we're going to go over 6 factors for targeting employers. We're going to talk about the ONET online, the website that can be a resource for you to identify potential occupations, identify potential target industries or employers, and then some of the things you might want to consider when you're establishing your income targets. I will identify what platforms might be acceptable and preferred for you, what values and culture might be important when you're targeting employers, and talk about your resume and how your resume should be tailored and targeted for the type of position you're wanting and the employer that you'd like to be working for. And we will talk about a headline and a value statement. And basically, we have a lot to go through, but so we're going to probably ask for questions at the end this week. But if you do have some and you want to send them through chat, you may do that as well. Okay, so now I will move forward, and if I just see like a finger, then I'll know to go to the next slide.
Okay, good. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everyone. And as Tracy said, there are a lot of learning objectives in this session, so it's jam-packed full of information, and so we'll try to go through it as best we can, with the understanding that there's plenty of opportunity to do deep dives about everything we talk about today. So this is really going to be a very much of a surface level in some cases, and maybe a little bit deeper in others. But there's plenty of resources available through Crossroads Career to support you to get additional information, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So the Bible verse at the beginning of this I found to be exceptional. It just says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. And I really, that is so true. And it's just a matter of, as we've learned in session 3, our gifts, those experiences, abilities, and personality, and our passions, our interests and values, and that X factor, the spiritual gifts and calling, are all intertwined to make us unique, one of God's masterpieces. So we're unique in that regard, and we're all God's masterpieces. So we learn to be better at those activities we value and are interested in. And we are motivated by the skills and abilities that we do well. And that brought back a quote that I recall. In fact, I wrote it down in my journal a while back, but it's from John Wooden, who is the famous UCLA basketball coach. And he said it best. He says, do what you do best, and the score will take care of itself. And so I think that's kind of apropos in the job search world. You know, it's we're focusing on what we do best and what we can really become emotionally engaged in, and the rest is really going to take care of itself. So, and as we discussed in the targeting opportunities in this session, please recall the Bible verse again. I'm going to go back to this one more time in page 9 of the workbook with Jeremiah 29:11. He says, "For I know the plans I have for you, and the plans to prosper you and not harm you, and plans to give you hope for the future." So those are all solid foundations to begin this session. So Tracy, next slide, please. I guess, there we go. Okay, good. Thank you. So we're going to be talking, as Tracy said, the 6 factors of targeting. And as you can see by the diagram, there are occupations that we're going to target, employers that we're going to target, and locations and income, all surrounding those employment opportunities that are the key focal point of what we're trying to do. And then at the foundation of that diagram are the platforms and the culture. And we're going to talk about each one of those. The occupations is in fact, is the work that you do and that you want to do. The employers are the people in the organizations for whom you work. The locations are obviously where you work, and the income, how much you make, and wages, salaries, and benefits. And the platforms is the kind of employee or employment that you're seeking, whether you want to be a full-time employee or a contractor, perhaps the owner of a franchise or an independent business, or a volunteer. Those are all platforms that we can talk about and look at and explore. And then the culture, which is really kind of a very important part of this. These are the operating values in the organization that are important to you, because your values that you have are important to you. And in many cases, those values that you have are non-negotiable. And so trying to find an environment in which to work is going to be an important part of that selection process. So to target opportunities, you explore your occupations and employers that need what you do best, and then explore the locations, the income platforms, and culture that best match your situation. So those are all really important. It's a very kind of a complex kind of a process, but we're going to take it step by step. So Tracy, next slide, please. So occupations on ONET. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to explore this, but it really is quite an interesting resource of information. You know, it's a great place to start targeting occupations, or even learning a little bit more about the work that you've done in the past. Maybe your occupation, you haven't really explored the full scope of what's available and or what's involved with that. So that's a great resource to spend some time looking at, and you know, it's sponsored by the Department of Labor and is considered to be America's primary source of occupational information. And I can see why. There's a lot there. It contains hundreds of standardized and occupational specific descriptions, almost 1,000 occupations covering the entire U.S. economy. And it provides overviews of occupational areas and options to deep dive into more specific areas. So it's a great resource. We'll continue to refer to it as we go through the program. And as you can see, the website for it, although it's net on the name, the website is
onetonline.org.
That's right. OneNet.
It looks like one.
I had a hard time breaking that apart. ONET online. That's right. I had a hard time sorting that out, but anyway, I finally figured it out and got it taken care of. So thank you very much. Okay, next slide, please. Also on there, as we target employers, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great resource there. They're armed with new information about different and related occupations, explore what people, organizations, and industries need most of what you do best. Think about employers not only as hiring you as an employee, but perhaps also a customer to your services. If you're an independent contractor or you're a consultant of some sort and you want to do that, or the owner of a business, you should look at those as potential customers and approach it from that perspective. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics website is helpful in exploring groups of employers and industries that are similar so that maybe you haven't thought about another industry segment that also uses.
Turn it up a little.
I'm sorry?
Hello, I'm here. Hey,
Glad you made
Ken.
it on, John.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going, guys.
No problem. So so anyway, they were. You might want to consider another industry segment or a related industry segment that may not be primary in what you've experienced, but has also opportunities that would use what you do best. So visit the Bureau of Labor Statistics at a online there and just take a look at that. Go through the and target those employers out there and identify some, and then you can go and use Google and just go to their actual websites and take a look at what the employers actually say about themselves, and that's a good starting point for targeting employers. So great. Okay, and locations.
Yeah, I just had one thing to say about, I'm not sure if it was ONET or the other, but there's a great crosswalk that you can go in and you can see, you know, if you have a specific job, say you're wanting to make a change from a profession you've been in to another, you can see a crosswalk of skill sets to find something that's going to be similar and utilize some of the skill sets that you may have from a previous occupation, and has a crosswalk to exploring new occupations. So it's definitely a great resource. So I encourage you to check it out.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Is that John that joined?
I'm here.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot.
It says
okay.
Bob, it's John.
It's John, okay, it says Bob, but it's John, okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm new here, so I got to get things straight. Okay, thanks a lot. So locations, obviously location is an important part of the process.
Can I have a quick question? I'm sorry, Tracy, which website were you talking about the crosswalk between?
I believe it's ONET. I will double check and let you know.
ONET, okay, that makes sense, great. Okay, thank you, Tracy.
Great.
Thanks, Ken.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tracy. You know, sometimes folks move to where the jobs are. I know that when I first moved to Texas here back in 1980, actually 81, there was a migration taking place from Detroit, Michigan down to Houston. There was, in fact, there was a joke at the time that the second most common license plate in the state of Texas was Michigan. And so people do move to a location where the jobs are because the jobs are decreasing at that particular area. So location can be a driving factor, you know, as you look for jobs as well. And maybe you want to, maybe it's even a little bit closer than that you don't want to go beyond a certain range from where you live in order to make the commute a little more manageable and things of that nature, as opposed to taking a long commute from here to Fort Worth or so forth. So location can be a very important part of that process. And some folks even, I suppose, have considered working internationally. And that's a pretty aggressive step, but certainly if you have the background and interest in that, certainly that's always a possibility as well. But there is another website on there called the bestplaces.net that is really very interesting and very good to go to. I looked through it over the last couple of days, and it has some interesting information about different parts of the country, different sections of Texas, different areas in here that tell you a little bit about the cost of living and sort of the conditions there for job seeking. And so, but you also take into account the other criteria of financial. You know, how is the cost of living where we are, and does that fit into where your goals are? How your family is being closer to relatives. You might have a great support system here. You don't want to leave. Or you might have a great support system in a town a little bit farther away, and that might make it more desirable to move. And then, of course, lifestyle. You know, all those things factor into that process of locations. So, any questions about locations as we go?
Did you talk about pay scale and look?
We're going to talk about that right next, John.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, and you jump in whenever you want to on any of this this information, please.
Sure.
You know, when you look at income, what is the minimum I need, and what would I like to earn? And research salaries and wages. Again, the ONET Center has a great deal of information on that, as well as salary.com, and even the Crossroads career section has a great resource there to take a look at salaries that are being paid. So there's got a lot of resources to take a look at that and do some comparison along those lines. Other sources that, and I found this as well on the Crossroads website, was that each one of these sessions has a whole block of resources available to it. And so in addition to exploring salaries for session 4, they have an article and information on the best health plans that are out there across the country, and then how to calculate the benefits. So, you know, it's not just your wages and your bonus and salary that go into this. You know, a benefits plan has a great deal to offer you from a total compensation package. So they have a little factor in there about figuring your benefits in addition to your compensation or your base salary. And then health plans and benefits, you know, it's always good to learn a little bit about those because those are an important part. And in fact, when you do get into that interviewing session and they're selling their company, I pretty much guarantee they're probably going to talk about their benefits package and what they offer to their employees there. So it's good to keep that in mind as an important part of your overall income. And then what to know about the retirement plans. I think I can be safe to say that most private companies have migrated to 401k defined contribution plans along those lines, but there are still some companies out there, and especially in the government arena and perhaps universities like state universities, University of Texas system, they have a defined benefit plan. It's the traditional retirement income that the company will pay lifetime benefits based upon their retirement. So those are all things that you probably need to take a look at. And I probably have missed a lot of things, John. Is there something that you want to add to that?
So Griffith, I did clarify, I don't know if you can see this, wait, there it is. So the ONET online is what it looks like, and there is a crosswalk right there. So that's the site I was thinking about.
Yeah, and the only thing you need to think about too, a lot of companies don't give you benefits until the first 60 days. So you need to cover those costs.
Yep.
So you may have medical costs and so forth, and you need to be covered with that. But if somebody gets into that situation, get back to us specifically.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Application plans for the next 6 months to a year, first 6 months to a year, you need to get those included in your offer letter.
Yeah, you know, and Ken and John, you bring up some great points. The other thing I would interject at this point, the latest report came out that we were at a 6.2 inflationary rate. So as people look in the past, it's learned behavior that people, when they look at their salary, they look at actuals from their past, and they don't project, you know, short-term, long-term, you know, fiscal responsibilities. In this turn, you know, as we see prices continue to go up, gas, food, you know, anything else along those lines, that you may want to look at projecting, I would say, is, you know, hedge that for about 8 to 10, because they're saying that this inflation, the inflation will continue to go up even more so within the next year and a half. So as you're looking at those numbers, definitely, you know, plug that in as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much. That's excellent. You know, that's totally true. And I'm sure the compensation departments of these organizations is going crazy because they're probably going to be modifying their salary ranges and everything else to go along with the changing environment out there. So great point.
Yeah, Ken, one other thing, if you have any professional services or professional education that you're involved with, whether you're financial or logistics or whatever, be sure to include those in your offer letter.
Very good. Yes, sir. And we'll probably, I think in one of the future sessions, we're going to be talking about those offer letters and interview processes and things of that nature. So definitely revisit those as we go forward in the next few sessions. So thank you guys very much for that feedback along those lines. That's excellent. Now the platforms that you mentioned, this is one of those foundational items of platforms. So, you know, a lot of folks, probably most of us, have worked as an employee, where we get the W-2 form and everything else, where salaries paid and taxes taken out. And then there's a self-employed contractor that may do a 1099 of just simply saying, you pay me what my rate is, and then I'll take care of the tax situation. And but I just will say that in my experience of working as an independent contractor, most of the companies that I have worked for have put me on their payroll as a temporary. So it was much easier from a financial standpoint of taking my assignment and having them pay me, as any other employee would be, and have them take out the taxes. So it was very good along those lines. And so the temporary business, I think, too, offers some opportunities for that temp to hire, or at least an opportunity to get busy with an organization. And they do have a full range of spectrum of positions that they go out to try to fill for organizations. So it's not just simply admin, clerical, or warehouse type positions. They do have professional positions that organizations look for to bring in on a temporary basis. And a lot of them have from a temp to regular employment type option available to them. So, and if you're interested, certainly in your own business or perhaps buying a franchise, there are plenty of resources available there listed on the chart there, the SBA, Small Business Association, and the franchise.org, where you can help them do that. And then, of course, volunteering is always a great opportunity. I think a lot of folks volunteer really to channel, if they don't get the full satisfaction of doing what they like to do in their jobs. Volunteering becomes a huge possibility of helping do that, to satisfy that passion that they have that may be lacking in the job itself. So all those are certainly options as platforms along those lines.
Yeah, Ken, I want to throw something in here.
Sure.
And it's psychology. So whether you're volunteering without pay, or whether you're working on a part-time gig and getting paid, even if you're not being paid the money you want to be paid, it changes the attitude that you have about yourself. You feel more worthwhile. Let's put it that way. I mean, it makes you more positive about yourself. So when you're interviewing for a permanent position, you have a different attitude. We were working with a candidate for a very high position, a very big CFO position, and he had 3 clients he was working with on a contract basis at the same time. And he was great. I mean, his attitude about himself was great. Our client loved him, and it's a whole different feel rather than sitting out there, looking for work and not having any money coming in and not doing anything at all. Changes your mentality.
I totally agree with that. And I can attest to that, because when I met with Tracy and had this opportunity to work with the ministry, it did give me a whole different frame of mind, and it really has been a blessing in this regard. So I'm very thankful to be a part of the All Saints career ministry, and thank you, Tracy, for that opportunity. So, okay, I guess the next one, the culture. Now, this is going to be an interesting topic, because I think there's a lot of variations to this that I don't know if you all have thought about it or have looked at it from the standpoint of what the culture is in the organizations you've worked with or currently working for, or have worked in the past, and what that was like, and how that organizational culture meshed with your culture, your values, the things that you like to do, the things that are important to you, and if there were any conflicts or gaps in the organizational culture with your culture, and the tension that may have caused. So, there's a reason why culture, I think, was one of the foundational items on the chart that we looked at, because it really is an important part as you look at organizations, you target organizations, to understand what that culture is. And it is becoming a big thing. I think most organizations are taking a whole new approach, or at least an interest in understanding what their employees think about working for the organization. And so, so organizational culture really is defined, if you want to get technical about it, defined the set of underlying beliefs, values, principles, and the ways of interacting within an organization. So if you look at an organization's website, chances are they're going to have some part of it that describes their vision, mission, and values. And they may even have employees provide a personal testimony of what it's like to work at that particular organization. So there's a sensitivity about culture that is gaining speed rapidly, I think, because the workforce is changing. The younger workforce has a little bit of different expectations than I did when I was at that age. And so there's a lot of things that are changing along those lines. And so I just want to mention this. There was a great book that I read a while back. It was called Built on Values. And it was written by Ann Rhodes, who was the former chief people officer for Southwest Airlines. And she was then one of the 5 founding executives for JetBlue Airlines. And her basic premise was this: that leaders in the organization drive the values of the organization, and the values drive behaviors of the people in the organization. Behaviors drive the culture, and the culture drives performance and ultimately employee engagement. And you may have heard that term, employee engagement, maybe have participated in employee engagement surveys at your previous employers. But that's an important part, and companies, I think, are really starting to take hold of that. Because engaged employees, it's an emotional attachment. Engaged employees are fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about their work. So they take positive action to further the organization's reputation and success. They have a vested interest. They like what they're doing. They like what the company's doing. They see a future at this particular organization, and they're fully engaged. It's an emotional commitment to the job and organizations. However, as John pointed this out to me just yesterday, he said the recent statistics reflect that only 34% of the US workforce say they feel engaged in the workplace. That's not very many. And the vast majority are disengaged. And then some organizations have people that are just the opposite. They're trying to tank the organization. They do what they can to diminish the organization. So it's a broad spectrum, but culture is an important part of that. And so organizations are trying to get the employee to have that emotional connection, to do that discretionary effort, that commitment to stay with the organization. But John shared with me, and I'd ask him to share with you too, is how the manager impacts the culture within the organization itself. I hope that was a good segue, John.
Okay, it's perfect. I just want to add one thing about culture, and that is there are a lot of things that are on websites, but you've got to vet them. You've got to do your due diligence, and that due diligence means talking to people who either worked or are working for that company that you are looking at. So my favorite way that I do that is I go out on LinkedIn and I type in the name of the company, and then I type in the word LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn people will pop out, and any connections I have with, or any people, frankly, that are on LinkedIn that are working for that company will pop up. And right. Then you can reach out to those folks and talk to them about the culture, and talk to them about each piece of the culture and how far along are they? Is it really that way with the company or not. And they'll tell you that listen, we're here and here, but we're not all the way there. Or frankly, we used to be that way, but we aren't anymore. And unfortunately, this happens at very large, very successful companies. Culture comes and goes. I mean, even at places like Southwest Airlines and 7-Eleven and some others, they had great cultures, then the culture went down, the culture came back. So you really got to find out where they are today, because their website may be aspirational rather than realistically a picture of what life is like in the company today.
Excellent point.
Okay. So the other point is, and Ken and I were talking about this, and I don't know if we talked before, but I've really come to believe that the fit with corporate culture is very, very important, like Ken said. So that's the first piece of fit. The second piece of fit is the fit you have with the person who you're going to be working for on a day-to-day basis. The management style of that manager and you is really, really important. And I think where things fall off the tracks a lot, I know they fall off the tracks, is that a lot of people don't figure out what their management style themselves, what they really want and what they don't want. And they don't know, therefore, how to communicate what they want and don't want to the interviewer who has their own management style. And I think that conversation has to happen. So the first part is, and I'll be brief about this, but I'll be glad to talk to anybody one-on-one on it, but is to write down what are the characteristics that are really important to you that you want to have in the management team that you're joining and you don't want to have. So like I give it as an example, most people don't want to be micromanaged, okay? But they want to be in an entrepreneurial organization, for instance. So that is talking about, is this a self-directed team environment? Or is the boss micromanaging everybody day to day? You need to find that out and be comfortable with that before you accept a job. Because if you don't like micromanagement and you land and you find out you're being micromanaged day by day by day, you're not going to last very long. And so that management style fit is very difficult to figure out, and it's very, very important. So I am writing up a little document with Ken's help, and then we're going to send it to Tracy, and we'll provide it to all of you, and be a little worksheet or set of worksheets on how to find out and how to figure out what you want and what your hiring authority wants, and where and when to communicate that. I think that's really, really important. I don't want to spend a lot of time today other than saying, hey guys, figure out what your manager, what his hot buttons are or her hot buttons. What drives them crazy? What do they love? And do not accept a job offer until you have a very clear vision of what their hot buttons are.
That is outstanding advice, John, really, really so, because, the old adage, employees don't leave companies, they leave the managers. And it's one of those things where inevitably where the rift begins, it's with that relationship with the manager. And if that can't be resolved, it usually means that an employee is going to be leaving the organization. So great advice. And I look forward to working with you on that. So on page 54 of your workbook, there is an exercise. And what this does, it kind of brings together all the things that we have been talking about here. And helping to condense, consolidate it, and to focus in on it. So the idea would be to write at least one occupation, in the section that says occupations. After you've done the employee research, the target employees or employers that you have identified, to put them in underneath the employers. And then locations, those locations that you certainly would either must have, or would be nice to have, or could be flexible to move to, that type of thing. The income, including the benefits packages and the other elements of compensation that you would be willing to accept. And then the platforms, how do you want to pursue this? Do you want to be a full-time employee? Do you want to be that independent contractor or franchise owner? And then, as John said, the culture. What is it about the culture that you want to see in an organization? And it's important that you write down the most important traits that you want to see that would define a proper workplace where you could become fully engaged in that. And then, of course, you can rank all of those items as to what's number one, the most must-have item on the targeting process, to number 6, and then finally at the bottom, so then you'll have a better appreciation of, when we go these next steps and start looking at organizations, you have sort of a plan, the beginnings of a strategy, the beginnings of a plan in place to focus your job search going forward. I don't know if I left anything out on that, Tracy or John. Please feel free to.
Just one thing I wanted to mention is that if you don't have a workbook, this exercise and many of the others are on the website. So if you go to crossroadscareer.org under resources, step 4, you should be able to find this and print it out so you can do it. And I would just suggest, even if you do have the workbook, go ahead and print it out for, multiple pages for different occupations or employers, positions that you're interested in. And if you're doing this before an interview, then you're ranking the factors most important. You're gonna realize, okay, well, I'm not gonna compromise on culture. Like, that's really important, that I have a fun place to work, or that, what if you have a base salary requirement, you're going to be able to realize that there's some non-negotiables. John, did you want to say something?
The only other thing I wanted everybody to separate corporate culture from management style. So I would add another bar down below there. And corporate culture is really important, like employee engagement. Is this a toxic environment? You may have a great manager, but it's a toxic environment. So you don't want that. But you may have a great culture, corporate culture, where there's employee engagement, but the guy that you're interviewing with doesn't fit the management style that you're looking for. So they're separate issues, and you've got to identify what you're looking for in each of those. Okay, guys, that would be my one recommendation.
That's great.
No, I agree. Yeah, you have culture of the organization, culture of your department, and then obviously management style, is another facet of all that, for sure. And so I think when you're doing your research and talking to people, obviously Glassdoor doesn't always have, one person who was disgruntled can throw off a whole entire organization, but you have to look at the number that's out there and take some of that with a grain of salt. But when you're getting the same story from a lot of people, you start to get a feel for that. But also being able to know someone within the organization, or even know about the department that you're interviewing with, is super helpful to get an idea, because there's some things, it's just like moving into a neighborhood. There can be all of this stuff that you find on, on Zillow, and you can get all the stats of the schools and but you don't really know the people until you do what I did. And I actually went to parties and neighborhood parties of the people before I moved into the neighborhood, because I want to know, what are the kids' parents going to be like that I'm going to, raise my kids in? And you don't get that online. So you actually have to go deeper in your research. And I think D Magazine called me I was infiltrating the neighborhood on a social standpoint is what they said. But still, I needed to know where am I moving? And this is going to be the environment that I'm going to raise my kids. And I say that is just as important, you know, the place that you're going to work. You're not going to know everything before you get there, but, you know, you can definitely get some clues.
And you don't go in cold. I always tell people, a job search is not about cold calling. Find people that, you know, like the company and will recommend you and refer you into the company.
For sure.
And if you can't, I mean, look, call us, call Tracy, call me, call Ken. We've got networks. If you say you want to get into Frito-Lay or you want to get into Kimberly-Clark or XYZ company, there's no reason not to get a personal connection to get the information you need to know whether you're going to fit.
Yes, very good. Okay, great. Well, I know we only have about 10 minutes left to make our 1 o'clock since we have a few little things. So I want to, I think, is it Ken or John that's going to be talking about the next slide?
I can go ahead and do that. That's John, you want to take over?
Or I can, either one. But I think mostly, most important, you know, just building upon the previous weeks. And if you haven't been on, we have them all recorded, or you can go back in the workbook. But the idea is this is all building upon each other. A lot of times I have people who call me and say, I need a job, like I need it right away. But this is a process that we're suggesting so that you're really, you know, taking stock of what is God calling me to do, taking inventory of what are my interests, my experience, my aptitudes. You know, let me make sure I have the right attitude. Let me make sure I get over if I have negative, you know, feelings about a previous employer. I need to work through all that so that I'm best prepared, you know, to market myself in a way that is going to attract the culture that I want to be in. So that's what we're doing here is you're going and you're reading some of these descriptions, you know, what kinds of industries. If you need further coaching and mentoring, we're happy to help you with that. So I'll turn this over and figuring out, you know, whoever wants to talk about finding the employers.
Well, I'll go ahead and just
talk about resumes today.
I'm sorry, I can't really hear. So
we're going to talk about resumes today.
I think there was just a little bit of resume information at the end of toward the next few slides. So
okay, well, I would just going back to what Tracy was saying. I think the most important thing is trust. So they need to trust you and believe that you are the right person for them, and you need to trust them, the future employer, that this is the right place for you. And I use the word love and fun. Did you love the work and you're going to have fun with the people you're working with? That's where you want to get. And you need to keep researching and digging and talking and visiting until you can answer yes to love and yes to fun. And part of that is communicating your management style. And part of that, Tracy and I talk a lot about this, is getting to your why and really understanding why you are who you are. Because communicating that out there, people say, oh, I get it. That's why he's a really good sales guy. Because his father was in sales and his grandfather was in sales. Oh my God, he grew up in sales. I mean, yeah, I get it. He's a sales guy. Oh, he took the 5 skills, the Rockefeller skills or whatever. And sales is number 1. Got it. Okay. That you communicate. And then you put it out there because you're looking for a sales job. That develops trust. Okay. So it's a two-way street and it's a trust building deal. And the best placements we've ever done is where both sides are super excited about getting the other one there. And then frankly, it's not about title and money. It's never about title and money. It's always about, I'm excited. This is going to be great. And when you get there, you'll get on board. Enthusiasm sells.
Right. Okay. So given our time constraints, I want to just, there's a lot more information in this step. We do have a target and identifying employers entire webinar. If you're interested in seeing that, if you haven't seen it before, Andy Tate, who's on here, has given us access to All Saints University website that I can send you the link for that, and it's great. But just know that you can find target employers a lot of different ways. Workbook page 55 has this information. LinkedIn is going to be a great source of information as well. Not only job openings and descriptions, but being able to really, figure out who you might know, who knows a person of influence there. LinkedIn is also super important, and we have an entire hour. Terry Sullivan, one of John's good friends, is an expert and LinkedIn guru, and I can send you the link for that as well. So just message me, careerministry@allsaintsdallas.org, and I can give you access to that. So just a few tips on resumes. John, did you want to talk about that, profiles or resumes?
Yeah, Ken and I talked about this yesterday. Just a couple of initial points. Number one, don't sweat the paper. In other words, resumes really are not what's going to get you in. It's the personal referrals. Resumes get you by the gatekeeper, okay? That you show that you have the minimum skills and experiences required in the job description. But beyond that, you really don't have to worry about things. You do have to worry in this day and age about typographical errors that literally Heidrick and major search firms like that have people who do nothing but search for typographical errors. And if you have a typographical error on your resume or on LinkedIn, they will discard your resume and your application. You will not go forward if you have typographical errors. So be really careful about that and get yourself a typo buddy.
Yeah, and feel free to send it to us to review it. We have a great team of volunteers, and we're happy to take a look at your LinkedIn profile or your resume or both.
Right. So that's one thing. The other thing is, don't be too wordy. Be careful. A lot of people have a lot of words, and people don't read them. And lastly, I'm going to send to Tracy a resume with a what we call a talent fit, which lists all of the requirements for skills and experience on one side and how you fill them on the other side. And my recommendation to you guys is that you combine a talent fit with a resume and send a single document in, a single Word document in together. And I'll explain why I think that really works. But it really separates you from everybody else, because there's literally hundreds of people sending resumes in and so forth, and you want to be different. And the talent fit resume combination does that. Yes,
that can definitely differentiate. Okay, so headline and value statements. This is super important, just, as part of your LinkedIn profile. And also, where else, John, do you see this being most important? Doing a value statement, do you suggest putting something like this on your resume?
I do.
Versus a summary of qualifications. This will be at the top. So you're going to talk about, the employee, what you do best, and be very results oriented, and what employer needs you meet. And you can customize, you're going to have a standard resume, but there's going to be customization for each important job that you're applying for.
Right. And that's where the talent fit really helps, because
yes, Absolutely. You don't want to have to rework it for every application, because that could lead to typos. So you want to have the core features of your resume remain the same, but you're going to customize it, with either the fit document that John's talking about, or obviously a cover letter as well. Okay, so LinkedIn profile, like I mentioned, we have a huge resource for that. Either of y'all want to talk about this slide? I'll go ahead if you don't. So basically, you've got 6 content areas. Your headline is going to be what's going to attract people to get you hired. You want to have a summary of your value statements. That is a very important section. A lot of people I see sometimes are leaving that out, and you really want to have a summary section and put the key pieces of information up there. Experience is going to have your work history, education, and your school and training. If volunteering has been a big part of what you do, or if you're serving on boards, definitely put all of those on. I think that's really important, especially if there's been any gaps in your work recently. And then skills and endorsements. There's ways that you can ask for endorsement of skill sets, and you can see, that you've given endorsements to others also. And then interests speak to who you are as well. You want to have a photo that's very high quality. That's very important. A quality headshot, looking at the viewer, not a lot of background. This is not Facebook. It's not a place to have your dog in there, or even your spouse or your kids. You want to have it be a very professional image. And then ideally your background header would also be an image relevant to your occupation or industry. So, my husband's an architect. He might have, a skyline of buildings or something else that he's done. Master resume, this is what we've talked about. You're going to have, maybe one master resume that's going to have all of the information. Most of you have resumes, but if you need any updating and, suggestions, we're happy to do that and help you with that. Let's see, this resume builder, probably not relevant to most of you that are on today, but if you don't have a resume and you need to start one, there is a resource on the Crossroads Career website to help you build that. There's a lot of other tools. Honestly, I think you're probably better off just starting in Word and, starting from scratch with the template. So again, make sure you show results. People are not going to read the resumes. You're going to skim it. I don't know if Matthew's still on. Yes, if you have anything to say too, but basically you're going to, you can lose people really quickly. And a recruiter is just scanning through maybe hundreds of wet resumes. And so they're not going to read every sentence. You want to have bullet points, keywords. In order to get through past the computer, you're going to need to have, as many matching keywords as you can to the job description. And Matthew, are you able to talk? Is there anything you want to add with resumes?
No, you did a great job. The only thing is, like you stated, look at that job description, just go ahead and plug it in. Also quantify, add meat. You want to differentiate yourself from the rest of the team, those other applicants. Keep in mind, a recruiter can see anywhere between 50 to, no kidding, about 5,000 resumes for a single position. So it's how you differentiate there. Also use bullets versus a paragraph resume. Again, to your point, Tracy, they're not gonna have time to read this, so bullets are important for them to catch. Use your most, I would say, most highlighted or most signified standout points regarding the position in the first 3 and the last 3 bullets. It's basically the bottom and the top of the resume, because again, they're just gonna look at the first couple sentences possibly if they're just gonna filter through. The other thing, don't put your picture. I've seen pictures on resumes. It depends on the job you're looking for. That's not always, I heard several times from Ken and John about the importance of culture. Putting a bunch of pictures on your resumes may not be good. In fact, it could actually prevent you from receiving a job due to fair and equitable opportunities. And so there's that piece to it as well. So you have to find out whether that's allowed. You know, I would make the call before submitting that resume. Other than that, I would encourage people who have experience behind them to put their education at the bottom or on the second page. However, don't put your education on top. Again, that's more of a job requirement versus a necessity, what makes you stand out, unless you're applying within the organization, or if you know the hiring manager actually went to the same university and you're trying to gain points that way. You know, remember, experience is going to start singing your praises more than anything else. Other than that, if you speak other languages, just make a bullet. Lately, they're finding more companies that are looking for those individuals who are bilingual, trilingual, so on and so forth. So if you have those skill sets, definitely annotate language skills as well.
Yeah, and if something is on the second page of your resume, or you're really old, third page, and it's really important, like speaking French and German and Chinese or whatever, just put that right at the top in your first paragraph. Why not? Just say speak French and Chinese. And it's kind of crazy, but it's really important, like you said. So language, if you worked for a company like a Pepsi or something like that, say, you know, work for Pepsi International. Big deal. Just stick it up there. I mean, because what you're trying to do is communicate in that first half of the first page the really important parts of your whole resume. Okay.
Very good. Okay. Just a few things on making sure that everything is completely true. You don't want to ever say anything that if something is a team, you know, you can talk about your individual contributions of what you did as a team, but just make sure that that everything on there is absolutely true. Should be obvious, but it's amazing. Okay, so you're not going to put in compensation information, references, you know, reasons for leaving, things like that. And so I apologize, we've gone a little over today. Again, any of these pieces, LinkedIn, resumes, you know, culture, these can all be full hour discussions, and we have and will do more of that. This is just a running through overview of some key points. And I do encourage you to, you know, use the resources that we send out, and also those that are on the Crossroads website. You know, take a little time looking at the ONET. We love that you do your continue to do your weekly exercises, and, you know, coming up with your ideas for the days, the week, and also, you know, rewarding yourself for the accomplishments that you've had. Those are important. And know that we're all praying for you, and that we're here for you in between calls if you need anything. Any other closing things that Ken or John, Matt would like to say?
No, I'm good. That's a great summary.
Great.
Very good. Well, then we'll go ahead and end in prayer. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Father, thank you that I'm yours. My life belongs to you, and I have great worth. Thank you that your perfect plan is being fulfilled in my life. I believe everything is aligning for my growth and the realization of your will in my life. Yet what you speak with your mouth, your hand fulfills. What you have declared, no one can stop. In Jesus' name, amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, thank you all for joining today, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye-bye.